The 23rd of February 1900, Volume 3. A sign to know whether a state is will of God. This morning, after I had almost lost the hope that blessed Jesus would come, all of a sudden he came and renewed in me the pains of the crucifixion. And he told me, "The time has come, the end is approaching, but the hour is uncertain." And I, without paying attention to the meaning of the words he spoke, remained in doubt whether I should apply them to my complete crucifixion or to the chastisements. So I said to him, "Lord, how I fear that my state may not be will of God." And he, "The surest sign, in order to know whether a state is my will, is when one feels the strength to sustain that state." And I, "If it were your will, this change, that you do not come as before, would not happen." After he, and he, "When a person becomes intimate with a family, one no longer uses those formalities, those regards which we used before when he was a stranger. So I do. But nevertheless, this is not a sign that it is not the will of that family to have that person with them, or that they no longer love him as before. Therefore, be at peace. Let me do not want to rack your brains or trouble the peace of your heart. At the appropriate time, you will know my working." End of the reading. The 23rd of February 1903, Volume 4. Men do not want Jesus Christ as their head. The church will always be church. As I was in my usual state, I found myself near a garden which seemed to be the church. Near it, there seemed to be people plotting an attack against the church and the Pope. And in their midst was our Lord crucified, but without a head. Who can say how painful, how horrifying it was to see his most holy body in that state? I comprehended how men do not want Jesus Christ as their head, and since the Church represents him on this earth, they try to destroy what stands in his place. Then I found myself in another place in which I found other people who were asking me, "What do you say about the Church?" And I, feeling a light within my mind, said, "The Church will always be Church. At the most, she might be washed in her own blood, but this bath will render her more beautiful and glorious." On hearing this, they said, "This is false. Let us call our God and let us see what he says." So a man came out who surpassed everyone in height, with a crown on his head, and he said, "The church will be destroyed. There will be no more public services, at the most some hidden ones, and the Madonna will no longer be recognized." On hearing this, I said, "And who are you to dare to say this? Aren't you perhaps that serpent, condemned by God to crawl on the earth? And now you are so daring as to make yourself believed a king, deceiving people. I command you to let yourself be known for what you are." While I was saying this, from tall he became very, very short. He assumed the shape of a serpent, and making a flash, he plunged himself down deep. Then I found myself inside myself. End of the reading. 23rd of February 1906, Volume 7. How Jesus was nailed to the cross in the will of the Father. This morning I was thinking of our Lord in the act in which they were nailing him to the cross. I was compassionating all of him, and blessed Jesus told me, "My daughter, not only my hands and feet were nailed to the cross, but all the particles of my humanity, soul, and divinity were all nailed in the will of the Father." In fact, the crucifixion was the will of the Father. Therefore, I was nailed and transmuted completely in his will. This was necessary because what is sin but withdrawing from the will of the Father, from everything that is good and holy which God has given us, believing to be something of one's own, and offending the Creator? And I, in order to repair for this audacity and for this self-idol which the creature makes of herself, wanting to dissolve my will completely and live from the will of the Father at the cost of great sacrifice. End of the reading. The 23rd of February, 1926, Volume 14. Jesus calls her the little newborn, so that she may be reborn continuously in his holy will, to new beauty, to new sanctity, to new light, to new likeness of her Creator. My love and my life, Jesus, come to the help of my weakness and of my reluctance in writing. Even more let your own will come to write, that I may put nothing of my own, but only all that you want me to write. And you, my mamma and celestial mother of the divine will, come to guide my hand while I write. Lend me the words. Facilitate for me the concepts which Jesus places in my mind, that I may worthily write about the most holy will, so as to make my sweet Jesus content. I was thinking to myself, why does blessed Jesus so often call me the little newborn of his most holy will? Maybe because I am still bad, and since I have not taken one step in his will, for the reason he calls me just newborn. Now, while I was thinking of this, my adorable Jesus clasped his arms around my neck and squeezing me tightly to his heart told me, to my little newborn of my will, I want to deny nothing. Do you want to know then why I call you little newborn? Newborn means to be in the act of being born, and you must be reborn in each one of your acts in my will. Not only this, but in order to be repaid for all the oppositions of the human wills, my will wants to call you into my volition to make you be reborn so many times, or as many times as the human wills have opposed it. Therefore, it is necessary to keep you always a newborn. When one is in the act of being born, it is easy to make her be reborn as many times as one wants, and to preserve her without the growth of the human will. For when the soul grows, it becomes more difficult to keep her without the life of her own self. But this is not all. It was necessary, befitting, and decorous for the newborn of my will, and for our will itself, that she would unite herself to that single act of the Eternal One, which has no succession of acts. And just as this single act gives the divine being all the greatness, the magnificence, the immensity, the eternity, the power, in sum, it encloses everything to make whatever it wants come out of this one act. In the same way, our little newborn of our will, uniting with the single act of the Eternal One, was to do always one single act, that is, to remain always in continuous act of being born, doing always one single act, our will. And while doing one single act, she would be reborn continuously, but reborn to what? To new beauty, to new sanctity, to new light, to new likeness of her Creator. And as you are reborn in our will, the divinity feels repaid of the purpose for which it issued the creation, and it feels the joys and the happiness that the creature was to give it. Come back to it. Clasping you in the divine bosom, it fills you with joy and with infinite graces, and it manifests to you more knowledges about our will, giving you no time. It makes you be reborn again in our will. Moreover, these continuous births make you die continuously to your will, to your weaknesses, to miseries, and to all that does not belong to our will. How beautiful is the destiny of my little newborn. So aren't you happy? See, I too was born one time, but that birth makes me be born continuously. I am reborn in each consecrated host. I am reborn every time the creature returns to my grace. The first birth gave me the field to make me be reborn always. This is how divine works are. After they are done once, their continuous act remains without ever ending. The same will be with my little newborn of my will. After she is born once, the act of her continuous birth will remain. This is why I am so careful not to let your will enter into you, and I surround you with so much grace, so that you may always be reborn in my will, and my will may be reborn in you. End of the reading. The 23rd of February, 1927, Volume 21. How the living in the divine will is to form a surprise visit to Jesus. I felt my poor heart under a press, so very hard, because of the privation of my sweet Jesus. Oh, how I moaned and agonized, and doing my usual round in the creation, in order to follow the acts of his will in it. As I arrived in the sea, I called him and said to him, my Jesus, come, come back. Your little daughter is calling you in the sea. I call you together with the vastness of these waters, with their murmuring. I call you in the darting of the fish. I call you with the power of your own will that extends within this sea. If you do not want to listen to my voice that calls you, listen to the many innocent voices being unleashed from this sea that are calling you. Oh, please don't make me struggle any longer, for I can take no more. But no, with all the voices of the sea, Jesus would not come. Therefore, I had to move into the sun, and I called him in the sun. I called him with the immensity of its light. So wherever I went, I called him in the name of each created thing and of his very will that dominated within them. Then, as I arrived under the azure vault of the heavens, I said to him, Hear, O Jesus, I'm bringing you all your works. Don't you hear the voice of all the heavens, the innumerable voices of the stars that call you? They all want to surround you and make you a visit as their creator and father. And you, do you want to send us all back? Now, while I was saying this, my sweet Jesus came out, placing himself as though in the middle of all his works, told me, my daughter, what a beautiful surprise you gave me today. You brought me all my works to visit me. I feel my glory, my happiness being redoubled in seeing myself surrounded by all my works that I recognize as many children of mine. Today you have acted like a son who loves his father very much and who knows that he greatly enjoys when he sees himself surrounded and visited by all his children. This son calls them all one by one. He gathers them all together, brothers and sisters, and he goes to give his surprise to his father, who enjoys in seeing himself surrounded by all his children. Not one of them is missing. He recognizes all the members of his family. Oh, how he feels glorified by all his children. His happiness is at the summit, and as the fulfillment of his joy, he prepares a sumptuous banquet, and all together, father and children, they celebrate. But in the fullness of his happiness, he recognizes the Son who has gathered his whole family to give a surprise to the Father and to make him enjoy so much. This Son will be loved more because he has been the cause of such happiness for him. Now, my little daughter, while you were calling me in the sea with all its voices, I listened to you and I said, let her go around through all created things, that she may gather them all together for me, and then I will let myself be found. In this way I will be able to receive the visit of all my works, that are like as many children of mine, and so they will make me happy, and I will make them happy. Therefore the living in my will contains indescribable surprises. I can say that wherever it rains, the soul becomes my happiness, my joy, my glory, and I prepare for her the banquet of its knowledges, so that, making each other happy, we extend the kingdom of the Supreme Fiat, that it may be known, loved, and glorified. Therefore, I expect often these surprises of my little daughter, who brings me the visit of the whole family that belongs to me. Moreover, since all our divine qualities are as though spread in the creation, and each created thing occupies one office of our attributes, so one is the child of our power, another of justice, one of light, another of peace, another of goodness. In sum, each created thing is the child of each one of our attributes. When you bring me the whole creation, you are the bearer of my happiness that is spread within it, and I recognize my child of light in the sun, my child of justice in the sea, that of my empire in the wind, that of peace in the flowery earth. In sum, in all created things, I recognize each birth from my attributes, and I enjoy in recognizing my children, whom the little daughter of my will brings to me. I act just like a father who has many children, and each of them occupies an office of honour. One is prince, one is judge, one is deputy, another senator, another governor. The father feels happier in recognising in the birth that came out from his inmost self each office and height of honour of his children. And since all created things were made so they would serve to make the children of the Supreme Fiat happy, in seeing you bringing our works back to us, we recognise in you our purpose, and oh, how we enjoy in seeing you go around to reunite all our works together in order to bring back to us our own happiness spread in the whole creation. Therefore, let your flight in my will be continuous. Then, after this, having received Holy Communion, I was saying to my beloved Jesus, my love and my life, your will has the virtue of multiplying your life for as many things as exist and will exist on earth, and I, in your will, want to form as many Jesuses in order to give the whole of you to each soul of purgatory, to each blessed of heaven, and to each being lived on earth. Now, while I was saying this, my celestial Jesus told me, my daughter, in one who lives in my volition, my will does precisely this. It multiplies the acts of the soul by its own virtue, for as many as are the created beings. The soul receives the divine attitude, and her act becomes act of all. The divine operating is precisely this. One act that it does multiplies itself into many, such that all can make that act their own, as if it had been done for each being, while the act was one. So the soul in whom my will reigns places herself in the condition of God Himself, both of glory and of sorrow, depending on whether the creatures receive it or reject it. The glory, because her act can bring the good and the life of Jesus to all, is great, exuberant, infinite. The sorrow because not all creatures take that good, and because my very life remains suspended without bringing the benefit of my divine life, is sorrow that surpasses all sorrows. End of the reading. There are no more readings today.